I may have lived in a haunted house. I wanted to share this story, as I've really enjoyed Mortis Media and thought someone might get a kick out of it. So before I start, I want to make it clear that I don't believe in ghosts. I believe there is always a logical explanation for everything, and even in the following story. I believe there is probably a logical explanation. I was never able to find one though, so believe what you will. In December 2018, my partner, our 18-month-old son, and I moved to a very old terrace house. We moved because we were in a 2-bedroom flat in a rough area, and my manager's mother had recently moved to a care home, and she was keen to rent a house to someone she knew. A bit of background on the house itself. It is part of a terrace of 5 houses. The start of the terrace is a pub. Then there were 3 houses, our house, another house, then a driveway that led to an area of private woodland accessible only to the residents of the house. As you can imagine, with an 18-month-old boy, having a garden and a small area of private woodland was an amazing selling point. The house is very old. It appears that at some point, the row of houses may have been one building and was split into separate dwellings later on. We were able to find a photo taken of the pub showing the row of houses from 1908. My manager believed at some point the building was used as a school, but I couldn't find anything to confirm that. The front door to the house opens directly onto the pavement outside, leading into the living room. Directly opposite the front door on the far wall of the lounge was an archway leading to the kitchen. On walking into the kitchen, the stairs leading upstairs are on the wall to the left. The stairs went upwards towards the front of the house. Just opposite the start of the staircase was the door to the conservatory, and the door to the garden was directly on the left when entering the conservatory. The window in the kitchen looked directly into the conservatory. The conservatory door opened to the top of a small set of stairs leading to the garden. Walking up the stairs in the kitchen to the first floor lead to a wall. Turning left at the top of the stairs looks directly at our bedroom door. Another door is on the same wall to the left of ours, which led to our son's room. And at the end of the short corridor was the door to the bathroom. I go into this level of detail as the layout is somewhat important to understand the weird stuff that happened. On to the spooky stuff. As I said, we moved in December. We only had one day to do everything, so I started moving our stuff across from midnight. Loading up the car, driving to the house, emptying everything into the lounge and going back to the flat to get more. I think I managed 10 or so runs by the time my father-in-law arrived the next morning with the van to move the larger stuff. From the moment I opened the front door that night, I felt slightly unsettled. Due to the layout of the house, there was a clean view through the lounge, through the kitchen straight to the conservatory garden. I didn't like something about the conservatory. I can't put my finger on what it was, but I just found the place creepy. It is worth noting that once we did get moved in, that feeling went pretty quickly, so was likely just the natural spookiness of an old empty house in the early hours. For the first couple of months, nothing particularly interesting happened. The occasional strange sound that could be easily explained by the age of the house and pipes, etc. The first spooky incident occurred during the middle of one night. Our son was teething and often needed Calpol during the night. We kept the Calpol in the kitchen, so I went down, filled the syringe with Calpol, gripped it between my teeth so my hands were free to open the baby gate, then started to head upstairs. Around 3 steps up, a shadow rushed past the stairs, as if moving from the lounge door to the conservatory door. This was accompanied by a whooshing sound and the physical sensation of the air shifting from something moving quickly. What was particularly spooky was that our microwave was on the work surface, meaning the light from the clock was visible from the stairs. As the shadow flew past, it clearly blocked my view of the light from the clock for a split second. Naturally, I ran up the stairs as fast as I could, gave my son his Calpol, and spent an hour trying to convince myself the shadow was caused by the syringe in my mouth getting between the light of the microwave and my eye. I tried to replicate this the following night for a while, but no way I could position myself where the syringe would cause anything like the shadow. Nothing else happened for at least 6 months, Then one night, myself and my partner woke up to an all-might crash from our son's room and him screaming. We jumped up and got to his room no more than 10 seconds after the crash. We found our son in the middle of his bedroom, around 8 feet from his bed, laying on the floor, crying in his sleep. He had a bed rail on his bed and had never once fallen out of bed. And even if he had, how far he had gotten from the bed and the volume of the crash made no sense. We got him back to bed and both pretended we believed that somehow he'd fallen out of bed. Another few months went by, and when taking my son to bed, the next creepy incident occurred. We had a very consistent routine. We'd go upstairs and brush our teeth. My son would then run to his bedroom, followed by me. Occasionally, he'd close the door and pretend to hold it shut as a game, so when his bedroom door closed, I assumed that was what was happening. I gently pushed against the door to pretend I couldn't get in, and the door slammed shut ridiculously hard. If my fingers had been in the door, they'd have come off. There was no way my son could push a door that hard. I told my son to let go of the door and pushed it with all of my might but couldn't get it open. It wasn't stuck shut. The door would open slightly and get pushed back against me as if someone was on the other side pushing against it. I shouted for my son to let go of the door and he shouted back. His voice was clearly coming from his bed around 10 feet from the door. Then all resistance stopped and I flew through the door to find my son in his bed as he had said. There is no way he could have gotten from the door to under the covers in his bed in the split second it took me to fall through the door. Everything, until that point, I could explain in unlikely but possible scenarios. The syringe causing the shadows, my son falling from bed. But that one I could not explain. I still can't to this day. My son was too young to really understand when I asked him what was holding the door shut, so I never got any answers if he saw anything. He didn't seem scared though. I think he thought I was pretending I couldn't get in to make him laugh. After that, we didn't have many problems until the last day I spent at the house. We'd bought a house and moved everything across. I had to go back to the house one last time to pick up the last few bits and have a clean. I waited until my son was in bed, so got to the old house around 8 p.m. in winter, so it was very dark. I spent an hour in the house, and the best way I can describe it was like a haunted house from a movie. I could hear footsteps running around upstairs while I was downstairs. Not like occasional footsteps. It sounded like my son and his friends did when they were running around upstairs. The only time it stopped was when I started walking up the stairs. I hoovered upstairs, and while doing so, the conservatory door downstairs slammed itself shut. When I hoovered downstairs, all 3 doors upstairs slammed shut one after the other, all so hard the house shook. When cleaning under the stairs, I could clearly hear someone walking down them. The stairs had gaps between them. It was sort of like a floating staircase, if that is the right term. So I'd have seen someone's feet if they were there, and I didn't see anything. But I clearly heard the footsteps pass over my head to the bottom of the staircase. Then I started hearing talking upstairs. I couldn't make out words, but it sounded like a man arguing. That was my limit. I decided that anything I'd left behind at that point wasn't worth keeping. I grabbed the Hoover, ran to the car, and never went back. My manager sold the house after we moved out. I have no idea if the lady that bought it had any problems, but I definitely wouldn't want to go back. Night in Las Vegas. This took place October 1st in 2021. We go to Las Vegas frequently because we live only a few hours away in California, and we headed there for a typical excursion. I enjoy trying new food or staying at a different hotel each time. Over the years, we've stayed at nearly every hotel on the Strip. Some of these hotels are decades old, dating back to the 1940s, 50s, and 60s. So understandably, we've witnessed the occasional strange noise, smell, or bump in the night. But the strangest thing that ever happened was at the newest hotel addition, Resorts World. Resorts World opened in June of 2021, and I was excited to stay there because it was something genuinely new for both of us. It was also our first time traveling post-pandemic, so we splurged a little and stayed at the Conrad side of the hotel, which was marketed as an affordable luxury hotel. It was a beautiful room, with all new technology embedded into the room to make things convenient and fun. I couldn't have been more pleased with the room. We unpacked, explored the resort downstairs a bit, did some gambling, ate dinner, and then I headed up to the room to get ready for bed. While I did that, my boyfriend stayed downstairs at the resort to do some more gambling and drinking. He usually stays up a lot later than me, so this was pretty normal. While I was laying in bed on my phone, I started to hear noises. Most of the noises were common hotel noises like pipes in the walls, bumps from the floor above, plumbing when another room starts their shower, standard stuff. But some of the noises were not normal. Mainly, I could hear creaking from the bathroom, as if someone was in there standing or walking, almost like they were standing at the sink getting ready for bed, moving around like a normal person. I didn't really notice it though until the sound started to move towards me, leaving the bathroom and moving into the bedroom. It sounded like footsteps coming towards me, but they were slow and uneven. I looked up from my phone and didn't see anything. I reasoned with myself that it was nothing. But something was off. It just felt off. Like I said before, we come to Las Vegas frequently, and we've stayed at nearly every hotel, but I've never felt creeped out like this. Even though my mind was being rational, it's just the floor, it's nothing. My heart rate was going up and I had a bad feeling in the pit of my stomach. I couldn't control it. It was like something was there in the room with me, giving me a terrible feeling. I stared into the darkness for a few minutes, and I could still hear the steps coming closer. I was staring right at it, but there was nothing there. They were moving so slowly, and they were approaching the foot of the bed. I could feel goosebumps. I couldn't even blink. The footsteps stopped at the foot of the bed, and then the room fell eerily quiet, completely silent. But whatever it was still there. It was at the foot of the bed, just there. Was it watching me? What was its intention? My phone was frozen in my hands. I didn't even want to look away. I was so afraid and didn't even know why. I don't know how much time passed with me just staring in an empty, silent hotel room. But eventually, I texted my boyfriend. "Hey, can you come up to bed now? I'm getting spooked in the room by myself." He responded, "Okies." Texting him and knowing he was on his way gave me some comfort, and I tried to get my courage back and calm down. I could hear common hotel sounds again, and that was comforting too. Perhaps the thing left while I distracted myself. When my boyfriend came up to the room, he teased me for getting spooked. We had a laugh, and he got ready for bed. I felt better, and mostly forgot about what happened. I think we both agreed the noises were just because the hotel was new and hadn't been lived in very much. However, one thing we both feared in every Las Vegas hotel was a break-in. So my boyfriend put his giant hydro flask water bottle in front of the entry door. We do this at every hotel, so that if someone tries to sneak in, which happens a lot in Las Vegas, they would knock over the loud water bottle and startle us awake. Finally, we both went to sleep. I was fast asleep when something jolted me awake. It was my boyfriend, thrashing out of bed, throwing the covers back, yelling, "Hello, who's there?" He rushed to his feet and headed straight for the entry door. I was still half asleep and asked, "Huh?" I was squinting because the room was very bright now, but my boyfriend looked pretty distraught and didn't answer. He went to the bathroom, checked behind the door, checked the closet, checked the couch area. It was obvious something had spooked him. "What happened?" I asked. "The lights turned on," he said. "Did you turn them on?" "No." "What do you mean? Maybe you bumped the switch in your sleep." "No. All the lights came on. Something, somehow, had triggered all the lights in our hotel room to turn on in the middle of the night. The bathroom, the bedroom, the little hallway in front of the door, everything had come on. What could have possibly switched on all the lights all at once?" We sat in confusion for a few moments, then tried to think clearly. Did someone try to break into the room? No, the stuff in front of the door hadn't been moved and the water bottle was still standing upright. Was there a master button you could press that turned on everything and it got touched on accident? No. There were two separate master buttons, one for the bedroom and one for the bathroom. Was it maybe a wiring issue? After all, it was a new hotel. Maybe that sort of thing happens. We decided to call the front desk. We weren't sure what to even say to the clerk on the phone, so we just told her all our lights had turned on and woke us up, and that we hadn't pressed any light switches on. She sounded pretty confused herself, and asked if we wanted her to send someone up to take a look at it. At this point, it was 3 or 4 in the morning, so we said no. She said okay, and took note of our call and wrote down the issue. We said goodbye, hung up, and sat in silence for a while. Now we were both creeped out, but we did our best to go back to sleep. The next day, we talked about what happened, but we couldn't come to any definite conclusions. To this day, I am still puzzled by it. The front desk never contacted us to tell us how the issue was resolved. It may very well be that the new hotel was still working out its wiring. But what were those eerie footsteps coming towards me in the middle of the night? Was a phantom messing with us? I wish I remembered the room number so I can request not to stay in that particular room again, just in case. My encounter with the Goat Man. During 1999, I worked briefly as a vacuum cleaner salesman. Yes, the job was as terrible as it sounds, which required very late nights as I was often at customers' homes till around 9 p.m. before having to go back to the head office to check out, then drive back home, often not arriving home until 12 or 1 a.m. I was working late this one particular night and was on the home stretch, around 10 minutes from home, when my old crappy cheap Ford Fiesta started to overheat. I knew the car wouldn't make it home and had no choice other than to pull into a lay-by on top of the big, dark, deserted mountain next to my town. My hometown is literally the last town before there are just mountain and forests for countless miles. As I pulled into the mountain parking area with steam pouring my engine, this is 100% true, by the way, a white humanoid figure, obviously surprised that a car was pulling into a deserted parking space in the middle of the night, ran directly front of my headlights as it sprinted from the edge of the clear side of the parking area and into the forest on the other side. It had no clothes, features, genitals, and hair, etc. Just a white figure with 2 arms and 2 legs that appeared almost luminous and reflective in my lights. To say I shit myself is a bit of an understatement. My eyes popped out of my sockets when it ran in front of me. But then I realized that I was stuck in a dead car in a deserted mountain lay-by in the middle of the night with no mobile phone signal, as this was back in the days when mobile phones were just starting to become popular. But large chunks of the country were missing from network coverage. I had no choice but to sit there for around an hour until my car cooled down, as it gave up the ghost pretty much the second I pulled in. So I sat in my car, alone, staring directly into the forest where the thing I saw had run. No weapon, no way to contact anyway to let them know where I was, and no passing traffic to possibly flag down. During my wait in the car, I obviously started to wonder what I had seen. I knew for a fact that I had actually seen something, and it was not a trick of the light. That much was clear. I discounted sheep, horses, foxes, or any other animal that populated the Welsh Mountains, as I was certain it a 2-legged humanoid creature shape with roughly human head, body, arms, and legs proportions. The obvious answer would have been that it was some very strange man who for some reason was wearing a white entire body stocking. Think Charlie's Green Man in It's Always Sunny. But since we were miles away from the nearest home and I was the only car around, it's highly unlikely that someone would have spent hours walking through thick forests just to hang out at a parking area in the middle of a forest wearing a unitard. Since I could rule out possible animals or humans, I had to consider the alternative, which isn't a nice thing to think about when you are stuck in a broken down car with this creature very possibly still outside. I didn't think it was aliens, as it was too tall compared to the classic look, while any type of apparition or ghost doesn't tend to run away from people when surprised. I'm not sure if there is some kind of Welsh version of a Wendigo, but if I had to categorize the encounter, this would be my number one choice. There was always talk of satanic rituals and witches practicing in the forest when I was a kid, and also of illegal bare-knuckle fights where people had been killed and buried there to cover up the crime, but I didn't think much of it at the time and always wrote it off to superstition and rumor. But now I'm not so sure. Eventually, my car cooled down enough for me to limp back home. No one really believed me when I told them what I saw and are adamant that it was a sheep. But to this day, I will swear that the creature I encountered was something different. I've been in the forest many times since camping, biking, and hiking, and have never seen anything like that again. But whenever I go there, I am always aware of the possible presence of the goat man,